So please join me in welcoming Scott O'Neill.
Can I come here?
You want to sit down?
Yeah, let's do it. All right, we're going to set this up. We're going to do a little fireside, and I just encourage you, if you have a question, just raise your hand or shout it out, and we'll have some fun. My wife promising me not to tell the stories, which means, of course, I'm going to tell it. I don't have any discernible skills around the house, and I married, my wife's father built houses and now does home inspections. And so it was a little awkward. I got married very young, and I didn't know how to do anything. Like we didn't have any money, so when if the toilet was running, she'd be like, "What? Can you fix it?" I was like, "Call a plumber." Like, what am I supposed to do? I don't know how to do anything. And she would inevitably then like emasculate me, call her father, okay, and then walk through on the phone as she fixed the toilet. So you're not dealing with like a real pro here. So she was giving me a hard time about two things. One was taking down the lights, Christmas lights, which I don't like going up on ladders. I know that sounds crazy, but like everybody's afraid of something. Heights is my thing. So I was just like, well, when's your father coming out? She's like, it's April, take him down. And so I was like, all right, well, anyway, so I fell off the ladder that night. So the next day, true story. And so the next day, she was talking about, we lived in an old house, and it had one of those old lights, right out front. You guys would know what I'm talking about, but I don't really. And so she's like, well, the neighbors have this like brass light. And I was like, okay, I don't know what you want me to do. She's like, well, I bought one. I was like, well, you should call someone to put it in. And she's like, well, we have company coming over. Can you just get up and do it? And I was like, I guess so, but that's what people do for a living, and that's not what I do, and I don't think this is a good idea. She said, do it. So I was like, fine. So now I'm kind of like insulted, because now she's like, well, if you can't do it. I was like, no, not me. Of course I can do anything. So I go outside, and I go to take the light off, okay? Now I forgot to do one thing. Yeah. So, I didn't shut the fuse. I didn't go to the fuse box. So, you know what happens when you do that?
You see how old he is? Fuse box, by the way, son? Just pointing that.
Okay, so I got an electrical shock, okay? That it was like the movies, okay? And my hair, it fell. I don't know if it was standing on it or not, but it popped up this way, and I just dropped to the ground. And I felt the bolt touch my feet and come back up to my heart, and I thought I was gonna die. And the only thing I could think of when my wife came out of the house, buckled over laughing with tears in her eyes, because she thought it was so funny, was like, I think I'm gonna make a better decision next time. So that's been the story of my kind of quality of life around the house. But I have other things that I do very well, just not those.
First of all, thanks for being here. Truly appreciate it. We enjoy the partnership with the Prudential Center, first of all. We advertise there. Great team you have. Enjoy working with them. I think you've created a great workplace culture. I guess first let me fill everybody in, since I neglected to do your bio. You're the CEO of Harris Blitzer Sports Entertainment. They cover 76ers, Devils, Prudential Center, esports teams, right?
Esports teams. We have a real estate business. We just bought the Lowe's Theater in Jersey City. We'll be renovating the Lowe's Theater. We just took over White Eagle Hall in Jersey City. We're looking to build an arena in Philadelphia in the next 10 years. So we're working on a bunch of different projects. We have a venture arm where we invest in companies. So it's a growing, fun growing business.
Great, because obviously you're a busy guy. Wife, 3 kids. Why a book? Like, what inspired you? What brought you to that point to say, I'm now gonna dedicate time to a book?
For sure. Well, one thing is what I found in life is that when I was young, I thought everything was just gonna go well. I don't know if you had that feeling, but you're 18 years old and you just think, hey man, I work hard. I'm relatively smart. Like, I'm ambitious. I'm gonna take on the world. And I remember a friend telling me like, hey, great CEOs, like they all fail, they all fall. And I was like, yeah, that's a great tip. Like, I'm gonna go through the moon. And that wasn't a real common thought where I grew up. Most of my friends are still, I grew up in Newburgh, New York, in a bit of a tough part of town. And so I had this vision of what I wanted to do, and I was gonna do it. And what I learned over time was that, like, it's not easy. Like, life is messy. I had no sense how my slips and falls would go and would be. And my last job before this job, I was the president of Madison Square Garden. I was unceremoniously fired. And it was an amazing job. The firing wasn't so fun. I started a company that I ran to the ground, took it to zero. That wasn't so fun either. My family, my wife and I have had 4 miscarriages, which wasn't fun either. But the one thing that, so I got this sense that just life isn't linear, like success, however you define it, isn't linear. It's just like, but all those like moments in time provide you these opportunities to learn. And I always find like when you trip and fall, you have a better opportunity to learn than when you succeed. And there's one particular time, my best friend of 20 years took his own life. And I found myself, it was about 3 years ago, and I was speaking at his funeral, and as I'm looking out and I'm trying to keep it together, which I couldn't, I'm looking at his kids and I'm looking at his wife, and I'm just thinking like, what a shame. Like, he won't be able to deliver any lessons to his kids, ever. He won't be able to like shine his light to anybody. He's not gonna be able to move anybody ever again. And I spun into like a pretty nasty grief. And I don't know if you've ever had any kind of grief, whatever you define as grief or depression or whatever it is, but I had never felt it. And my dad had died a year earlier, but he was really sick and it was just different. And I just couldn't get out. And so I started writing to kind of free myself and talking to my friends. And I've just because of my job and the industry I'm in, I have some friends that have incredible stories. And what I found with everyone I talked to was like, everybody has been through it. Like you look outside, it's not like the movies. It's not like TV. There's no like perfect family. There's no like perfect executive or perfect relationship or this family is just amazing. Everything's good. It's just like, it just looks good maybe from the outside. But when you dig a little bit deeper, when you walk one step closer, when you really get to know somebody, you find out that everybody's been through it. And so I started to capture those stories about how people had some tough times in their life and my own too. And I started to capture like what we learned from those lessons, and that became the book. So it kind of spiraled into a book, but started as kind of my own way to heal.
Touching story, and I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Obviously, then you must be compassionate, as we are, with mental health. Our brothers and sisters, essential workers, went to work every day through COVID.
Yeah, by the way, way to go. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Has it changed your approach on how you reach out to your employees, your team, your staff? Losing someone in that way, has it changed the way you deliver your message to your team?
Yeah, it sure has. Like, in fact, I was with, his name is Will Carden. So I was with Will 2 weeks earlier. My brothers and I put on this baseball tournament every summer. We ran out of stadium and just go have some fun. And I just remember he was spiraling at the bat, and I just kept saying, like, just be happy. You know, just like go serve somebody. When I feel bad, I just do some service for other people, or like just choose to be, you know, I just didn't really understand what it was like. And so COVID gave me a great chance to step back and think about what's really important. And philosophically, as I talk to the people I get to work with every day, is I tell them that you've got to focus on yourself first. And at that point, you can take care of your family. And after that, then you can help us at work. And I think that's very linear. And oftentimes, like when you're scrambling through life and you're working so hard and you're just on that treadmill and you're just trying to get through another day, we forget to take care of the person in the mirror, and that's got to be the first order of business. So our formula at work is pretty simple. It's kind of mind, body, soul. It's the first thing. It's like you gotta do something for your mind, something for your body, and something for your soul every day. And so the body's the easiest. It's the hardest to stay regimented, but it's the easiest to understand. It's like, get 20 minutes and get the heart rate going every day, no matter what, and make it a priority. And what happened to me, I wasn't doing that before COVID. During COVID, I was on it. I'm like a pickup hoop junkie, but in the absence of that in COVID, I got a Peloton bike and I ride for 45 minutes every day, and that's not for everybody, okay? But you can go for a walk, you can go for a run, you can get on a bike. You've got to do something to get that blood flowing because you have to stay healthy. The mind is a little more complicated because what we do in our lives is like we're exhausted when we get home. Like, we don't want to do anything except sit in front of the TV or just veg out somewhere or get something to eat. And what I found, and just in terms of mental health, is like we have to be learning. And whatever learning looks like for you. And what it looks like for me is I got into like blockchain and crypto. And I think that 5G and blockchain are going to literally change the world just like the internet did 15 years ago. And so I'm interested in that. So that's what I spend my time. I listen to podcasts, I listen to TED Talks, I get online, I read, and I study. And I think that if you can find some other interest other than your job that you're learning, I think you'd be more mentally healthy. The soul is a little more complicated to talk about. I understand, but I do think meditation and stillness every day, or yoga, or running, you need some 5-minute period in your day where you just have stillness and quiet and peace. And you can do that when you wake up in the morning, before you go to bed in the morning. Or what I like to do is sit outside. I have like a kind of like that type of tree set up in my house, and I just listen to the birds chirp in the morning, and I don't think about anything. I just center my body. The fourth thing is around sleep, which I don't do very well. And some of you might be incredible sleepers, and good for you. But for those of you who are insomniacs like me, it's a little harder. But 10, 15 years ago, it was just about go, 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 go. All my friends were like, I sleep 5 hours a day, I sleep 4 hours a day. I'm like, I'm trying to get 8 in. I'm just better. Like, we need sleep because that's when your brain heals, that's when your body heals. And the fifth thing is, it might be a little less obvious, and that's about gratitude. And the best example is my daughter. I have a 14-year-old daughter, and if you have daughters that are 14, like, you'll totally get this. And if you don't, you totally won't. But 14-year-old daughters are very difficult, and they're especially tough on their moms. They have all kinds of hormones and emotions going on that makes them probably clinically insane. I'm just kidding, I have no idea, but they're tough. But what I love about Eliza is she has this commitment to gratitude. So every day before she goes to bed, no matter what, and she's a creature of habit. She's a classic like OCD introvert, so everything has to happen the right way at the right time. And I'm a type A kind of loon, so like our communication is very difficult with each other. But every night before she goes to bed, she writes down 14 things she's grateful for. And it's different every time. She's been doing it every day for 3 years. And I always think about, like, if I had that kind of discipline, how much better my life would be. Now, we all have, like, notes on our phone. If you just write down, like, 3 things you're grateful for on your phone, think of how much better life would be. Because you spend your day thinking about, well, what am I going to write tonight when I'm grateful? So it might be something you think about. She also has a positive thoughts clicker, which this is really cute. And so if you go by her room at night, and she's a night owl, she doesn't sleep at all, you'll hear just click, 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 click. She has this little clicker, I don't know what it's from. And every time she has a positive thought, she hits it. And I thought, man, what a great lesson. And I always think about, like, the lessons you can learn from your kids are so much more powerful than the ones you can teach. But anyway, that's my mental health formula that I drive every single day. Is do something for your mind, something for your body, something for your soul. Get a good night's sleep and be grateful.
It's awesome advice. I don't want to take this whole thing. Does anybody have a question or want to jump in? Any disgruntled Devil fans want to know what's going on?
Or Knick fans, we can talk about that second round. It's going to be quick.
Well, why don't we segue to sports a little bit? The Sixers, obviously the worst to first scenario, 10-game winning season. You always talk about the process. I would like you to share that, but then also, can that same method be used in other industries? Or is it, just more typical to a sports franchise?
Yeah, so I got to the Sixers in 2013, and it was effectively, we hadn't won 50 games in 20 years since the Iverson run-up. And so it'd been a tough stretch, to say the least. We'd also just made the worst trade in NBA history, arguably, for Andrew Bynum, who we traded a lot of first-round picks, our top young talent, and any future we had for someone who never played a game. He hurt himself bowling or something. Can't remember. So then I came in, and we had 2 first-round draft picks over the next 5 years, a salary cap team, meaning we were paying a lot of money for a team, and we weren't expected to make the playoffs. So it's a bad combo. High salaries, low expectations. Our business KPIs, like in terms of our key performance indicators, we were among the bottom feeders in every performance indicator. In fact, my dad called me when I took the job, and he infamously said, "Son, even you can't fall off of this floor." Dads are just amazing, huh? And we didn't. And so our thought process at the time was to have a little bit of a longer term view. And I think about that about life quite a bit with myself, is I think today, like how we live in the world, is just about this moment. Like, what are you doing today? Especially young people. It's like cancel culture. What's happening on this moment? What's on Instagram? Now. When in fact, like anything that's worthwhile that you'll ever accomplish in life, you're gonna set a vision for it, and then you're gonna work towards it. And it's gonna take time, and it's gonna take discipline. In the basketball world in particular, there's a lot of noise out there. Media can be very challenging. Fans can be very vocal, very passionate. And even in my own house, we were getting a hard time quite a bit. let alone when you go drop your kid off at school and the 24-year-old teacher's aide is giving you a hard time about your performance. In fact, like over a 3-year period, we had the worst record in NBA history over a 3-year period. So we went 18, 10, and then 17 in terms of wins. So that's not, you might say, well, that's not very inspiring. And I would say, no, maybe it's not, but we had a plan and a vision for something better, something in the future we wanted to accomplish. We wanted to win a championship. And to do that, we knew we had to do it very differently than it had been done before. And we knew we were going to have to build through the draft. So we just were patient. And we made so many mistakes. Holy moly. And I think about like the mistakes you might make in your life, or I might make in my life, or you might make at work, or I might make at work. And I always think it's like you can only make the best decision you can with the information you have. Then you make the decision, you learn from it, and move on. And hopefully you learn something, and the next decision gets a little bit better. But we missed on some draft picks. We traded some of the wrong players away, and we traded for some of the wrong players. But at the end of the day, we just kept the discipline. Like we were just going to have a long-term view. And as we look forward today, fortunately, we're in first in the East, and we're a very, very good team. We've got 2 global superstars, in Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. Joel's a kind of MVP candidate. Ben's a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. And we've finally gotten to that point, 8 years later, by the way, of a team that is meeting the expectations we set forth in the beginning. What's really interesting about that and the parallel to life in the first story I shared is like, we expected this, but it wasn't. It was this, like life. Made a good mistake, made a bad mistake, drafted a guy 3rd, traded for a number 1 overall pick, traded him a year later. I think we have 3 picks in the top 6. We have a 3rd, a 1st, and a 6th that are no longer on the team, which means something went wrong, right, on our end. And it's not because we were not relatively smart. I'm sure some people would argue that we're not, but I'd argue it's a relatively smart group. But it's certainly not for lack of work. I think people would argue that we work relatively hard. And we made decisions, and we made mistakes, and we moved on. But over a series of time, you're just more apt. If you keep looking at that point in the future, you're more apt to do a better job if you stay focused. And I think that so much has to do with life in terms of what you want to have as a relationship. What do you want to be as a mom or a dad? What do you want to be as a husband or a wife? What do you want to be on the work site? Like, who do you want to be? And you can't just snap your fingers and change. It just doesn't work like that, unfortunately. I wish it were. How great would that be if you're like, I want to be this, and you just do it. It just doesn't work. It takes some process and some discipline and some planning and structure. But if you shoot out far enough, there's a strong sense that you can accomplish anything you set your mind to.
8 years of the Devils, 8 years we got to wait. That's the process. Is this the
we got a few more
bailout
years
term
of
we're
depth.
going with?
I don't know if there are any hockey fans out there, but it's been a rough go on the Devs. I finally think we have a core. I think we have the right coach, Lindy Ruff. I think we have the right general manager in Tom Fitzgerald. And we have some really, really special young players. So I think this team is 2 years away from being really, really good for another decade. So same process. Hockey takes a little bit longer. We're drafting young kids. And hockey, that's a man's sport, and you can't send a boy in there. We've got a lot of boys on the ice right now. And they're earning their stripes, and they're learning how to play, and they're getting stronger, and they're getting better. And I have a really, really good conviction that this is the right process, and we're going to be saying the same thing about this team just a few years later.
Great. Another thing I picked up, I happened to be watching a podcast. Maybe I'll throw the plug out there. I think it was Sean Delaney. Sean Delaney podcast. Good podcast, by the way.
Thank you.
What I found interesting, because it's a term I always use, networking, and everybody uses it. You kind of frowned upon that term and really talked more about connecting. Can you talk about the difference? Or?
Sure. Yeah, I sure can. So I just don't like the connotation around networking just because it doesn't feel authentic. It feels like I'm trying to get something from you. If you look around in the room, imagine some of you know, I don't know, half the group, and some of you know 3 people here, and some of you maybe know everybody, and some of you have been here a long time, and some people are probably pretty new. I would just look around and just think like, these are your brothers and sisters. Like, what an incredible gift. And think about like, what are you going to be doing in 5 years or 10 years? Or you want like more stability, more opportunity. It's right here in front of you. And I've found that over time that someone said once that I collect people like others collect baseball cards, which I'm not sure if it was a compliment or not. But I do love people. I love to meet new people, and I love to help people. And so for me, I never meet someone with an idea like, oh, I just met Bernie. What can I get from him? That's just not how I see the world. I say, oh, I just met Bernie. I wonder if there's a way I can help him. And I think if you go through life meeting people that way, or use these opportunities to kind of get out of your comfort zone a little bit, because it's a little awkward to walk up to someone you don't know and say, hey, I just want to introduce myself, I am. But I always find I don't know, they always lead to some commonality, some connection, some friendship, some opportunity where you might be able to help. And I think if you walk through life that way, life gets really easy later on. And I have my group I work with is a lot younger than this group. I mean, the average age is 26-ish. And I always tell them, at these meetings, I'm like, I mean, you guys are the early part of your career, look around. Can you imagine 20 years from now, who you're gonna know in the sports business? You're gonna know 500 people. And all you have to do is be a good person, try to help everybody, and be an extraordinary teammate. That's it. That's the price of admission to being the most connected person in the business. And I think there's a good lesson out there for all of us. And using these opportunities, and by the way, good for you for coming. This is my first in-person meeting that's not a work meeting. So good for you for setting it up, and good for you all for showing. But man, what an opportunity.
Mother's Day is next week, this week actually. Father's Day around the corner. I know we talk a lot about pro sports with you, running big companies. I know a lot of our brothers and sisters are coaches. I've coached my daughter. I believe you coached your daughter.
Yeah.
Is there a difference? Do you feel how do you measure success? What message would you give to one of our members that's involved in youth sports? What is your measurement of success at the youth sport level?
This might be a little different from some of you, because I know some of the crazy coaches out there, and I hope none of you are them. And coaching girls might be different, but I truly believe that team sports teaches you so many valuable lessons, and it has nothing. I think learning how to. You want to talk about learning how to be an extraordinary teammate? There's nothing like team sports. How about learning how to lead or follow, win, and even lose? How to sacrifice, how to sweat, how to actually give it your all, actually go after something you want, nothing you've ever wanted before. And my teams are rarely that good. I usually encourage my daughters they're okay, but they're not great players. I always encourage them to get their friends who are not good players. And even if there's a draft, and those leagues where they draft players, I just take their friends. Because I figure, man, what a cool opportunity. I get to know their friends and meet their friends and be around them. And my vision of success is that the girls play the next year. And so you might set different goals. You might say, hey, I want to go undefeated, or I want to beat my neighbor's team because he's an awful person, or whatever your goals are. Mine is I want them to fall in love with sports. I want them to fall in love with the game of basketball. I want them to understand what it means to compete so hard that it hurts. It doesn't only hurt to lose, but it hurts your body the next day. I want them to dive on the ground and feel what it feels like to fight for a ball. Because that is what I think is the essence of success. Being an extraordinary teammate and competing like crazy.
Want to jump out to the audience again. Any questions coming up yet? Boy, they're a quiet group, not normally. Another interesting thing I found from you, Scott, though, is you talk about love a lot. And not just in the typical context that we think, like family, wife, kids. You said it needs to exist in the workplace. I mean, do you truly work that way when you're doing business?
Yeah, I'm definitely a little bit of a non-traditional manager and leader. And I have quite a different spin on what it might be for you, or at least in my workplace. Is I always say you don't have to like each other, but you have to love each other. And so if you think back to if you grew up with a brother or sister, or brothers and sisters, or brothers and sisters, you didn't always like them, or at least I didn't, but I always loved them. And I think the notion of that will help you. It'll help you in life. You'll be happier, for sure. But also, think of the person next to you. All you're trying to do when you truly love someone is help them be better. And so you catch them when they fall. You might avoid a mistake. You might tell them that they're doing a wonderful job. It's think of the last time that you actually said to the person to your right or to your left, hey, I just want to tell you, I really appreciate you. I just want to say, thank you, Or, hey, you know what? You really helped me out today. Thank you very much. Or, when's the last time you literally just took your phone and text your mom, if your mom's still alive, and if she's not, some mother-like figure in life, you say, hey, Mom, I just want to tell you I love you. I appreciate you. There's a lesson you taught me when I was young that I still hold for this day. I just want to tell you thank you. I really love you. Can you imagine the reaction your mother will give you when you send that note? And I hope you send that today. I promise you, because here's the note back. Are you okay? You know what that says? I got to reach out to my mom a little bit. But it's not just your mom, right? How about your spouse? When's the last time you literally reached out, left her a love note or him a love note? Hey, just want to let you know, I really appreciate you. You know, I know it's been hard. I know I've been working really hard. I know I've been a little distant. It's been hard. This whole COVID thing's driving me crazy. I just want to tell you, I really appreciate you and love you. That's easy, guys. Like, that is easy, easy, easy. That's a Post-it note. That's 12 seconds. You text your mom, what is it, 25 seconds? Text your mother. It's going to make her day. Can you imagine making someone's day in 25 seconds or less? How about someone at work? How about your boss? How about someone who hires you on a job? Send them a note afterwards. Hey, I just want to tell you, thank you. I just want to appreciate you because I appreciate the work. I know it's hard out there. And I appreciate the opportunity. How's that going? And that might not even help you, but it's going to help the next person they hire. Like, this is simple, simple stuff of gratitude and appreciation and love that we just have to drop into our everyday. Because it's not hard. And the pay is, like, the risk reward on that, the risk is zero, reward is infinite. Like, those are the kind of deals I encourage you to do.
I also heard you speak many times about, I guess, call them unorthodox, your vacation policy at work. And also the method in which you let people go. I mean, a lot of our members out here are foremen in the field. Sometimes they have that difficult time letting someone go. Yeah. Do you want to share a little bit of that?
Yeah, sure. Anybody here ever been fired before? Like, I have. So, anyone? Okay, awesome. Congratulations. It's a good fraternity. Okay. And I would say, like, getting fired is not a fun process. And having been fired, I think I have, like, empathy for it. And I've fired hundreds of people in my life, unfortunately. And here's how I fire people. So it's just a little different from the way you do it. So I typically call them in, and I know, just like you would know people you work with, I know them well. I recruited most of the people in. And it's amazing, like, when you hire someone, when you hire them, the person wasn't an idiot, right? The person wasn't incompetent. The person wasn't, like, not a hard worker. Right? The person comes in, you're like, I love this person. I wouldn't have hired him or her. And so typically I sit them down and say, hey, how you doing? Great. Okay, it's not working out great here for you. And I just want to talk about what your future looks like and how I might be able to be of help. They say, like, oh, usually they know. It's usually not the first time because I'm pretty good with direct feedback. And then we talk about, like, what the future looks like. What do you aspire to be? What do your dreams look like? And how do we get there? Like, because your future here is not going to happen. Like, those dreams that you have, your high aspirations of being promoted or doing something special, it's not happening here. And so what I want you to do is I want you to spend the next 3 months trying to work with me to try to figure out how I can help you get to a place where you can actually excel. And so, and those people usually leave, and nobody typically knows they're fired, and that's wonderful. It's a wonderful way to go through life. Most of them send me Christmas cards, believe it or not. And I wonder if, like, that can be applied to different parts of our life, you know? I don't think we have to ever embarrass anybody. I don't think we ever want to put anybody in a situation where they can't support their family or they can't pay bills. That's not a way, like, I want to go through life. I was out of work, out of luck, and out of money. I had foreclosure notices on my house with a kid and a wife. I know what that feels like. I don't want to put anybody else into that. When COVID came, executives, bonuses out, everybody held their salaries, and I kept the team together over some pretty harsh objection for several people. And I said, like, hey, I've been there. I don't want to put anybody into the market right now when there are no jobs. And I wonder if some of that compassion can be applied to, like, different parts of your life or different things you might think about. And I would think about when you're firing somebody, like, put yourself in their shoes. If you haven't been fired before, you have no idea what it feels like. It's humiliating. And you feel vulnerable, and you feel, like, incompetent, and you're second-guessing yourself, and you feel like all these feelings you haven't felt in a really long time. And so just know, like, it's a person. And we're dealing with people. Treat them like people. Because I think that's how I want to be dealt with.
I want to wind down with a few things. I don't want to go too long, but there was another quote I heard you say. It was interesting. Do you want to be right or be effective? You know, most of the time you would think be right would be the answer, you know, but you want to talk a little bit about that story?
Yeah, sure. I think you probably find this, I imagine in your work quite a bit, is like, you're great at what you do or you wouldn't do your job, right? And so you know what to do and how to do it. And oftentimes you're working with people who maybe don't know as much as you, or they don't know how to direct you properly, or maybe you're the foreman and you're directing them. And I've found, like, when I was younger, I was so focused on being right all the time. And I was right a lot. I was smart, hardworking, always reading, always studying. And I could not move the ball. And I couldn't figure out, like, why everything was stalling for me. Like, my career was stalling, my departments were stalling. And I had this great shift. I had a guy just lecture me pretty aggressively, HR guy. And Jeff Robinson is his name, when I was at the NBA league office. And he was like, man, you're so focused on being right. And I was like, because I am right. He's like, yeah, right, let's talk about that. And he talked to me about, like, creating relationships. He's like, because I was on the road every day. I was on the road 5 days a week, 3 different cities around the country. And I was like, well, that's where I add value. He's like, yeah, but Scott, you need relationships here in the office. The marketing people don't know who you are. I was like, well, I don't know who they are. He's like, do you need them? I'm like, no. He's like, maybe you do. He's like, what about our entertainment people? What about the digital folks? What about the lawyers? What about the finance people? What about the HR people? And so he kind of pushed me to kind of create my own little network, come off the road 2 days a week, and actually spend time with people, get to know them. And I think about you and your job, and you think about, like, do you know the people you work with? Or you just kind of staying in your little cocoon like I was? Because that's what I was doing. Because I was happy doing what I was doing. I just couldn't move the ball. And I had, like, big aspirations about what I wanted to do and who I wanted to meet and what I wanted to accomplish, and it just stopped. And I think about, like, and now, you know, with such a young crew that I work with now, I find that same, like, piss and vinegar, like, I know what I'm talking about. I'm right. I'll do this. I want to do that. I'm going to change this with the price. And I was like, okay, let's just think about that now. Because I was that person, you know. And I just think about you, and I want you to be effective. Life's easier when you're effective. You might feel like you're the smartest person in the room when you're in it. Like, think about that, you know? Think about being the most effective person in the room next time.
Great advice. Again, any questions out there before I move on to a couple of lighthearted moments?
Humor me with one question. Here we go. It took me about a year of straight writing. And then I went to see an agent, because an agent will sell the book into a publisher. And the agent said to me in no uncertain terms, her name was Jan Miller, she said, she did this to me, she said, this is a book. This is not a book. We need to get you a writer. So that took another 6 months after that.
Thanks. Anything else? Henry?
So you say you were connecting with everybody, different like that. What's the most interesting person you ever connected with or met in your business?
Oh, I have. The question was, who's the most interesting person I've ever met? Night Shyamalan, the director. I don't know if you know him. He did Signs and a bunch of other incredible movies. He's incredibly fascinating. Chris Rock. I don't know if you're a comedy fan, but at the Garden, I was around him a bunch. Mark Messier, if you're a Ranger fan, legendary Mark Messier. Allen Iverson is another, like, really eclectic, interesting guy who I've spent a lot of time with. I know you said one, but I've had a crazy career with this stuff.
What made those people special to you? Like, what attributes did they have that you saw and stood out to you?
I think it's a great question. So the question was, what attributes made that person special or different? Knight he's one of the most creative people in the world. I think he sees the world really differently. I think I have such admiration and respect for artists, like musicians and artists, and he makes movies, because I have no creative skill at all. And he just sees the world differently. The stars I'm fascinated with, like the Iverson, Mark Messier, because it's like when you walk with Allen Iverson or Mark Messier, it's like you're walking with Bono from U2. Like, people lose their minds. And I think that's really hard. And when I was young, I thought about what it might be like to be famous. I think a lot of young people grow up and you want to be in the NBA or an NFL. It's not a life, now knowing what I know now, it's not a life I aspire to being a superstar and all that comes with that. But how they handle celebrity, those two in particular, blows my mind. Chris Rock, I laugh before he speaks. And so that's a real gift, and that's a gift that keeps on giving.
Anyone else? Okay, I told Scott when we were speaking that, if he was going to force me to come up here, I was going to have my Michael K moment. I was going to be the center stage, and I was going to throw out some lighthearted questions, and I'm actually adding one because of Henry's question. You spoke about, obviously, living athletes. Is there an athlete in the past that you would have loved to have sat down and speak with?
Oh, man. I have, athletes that you all probably wouldn't appreciate. But, my favorite basketball player of all time was Mark Jackson, who I happen to know. And I've known him now just because of my job and his job. But he played with St. John's in New York and then went to the Knicks. And I love him because I loved him as a player because he just didn't have the necessary skills to play at a high level in the NBA. And yet he had this incredible career. And he came in the league and couldn't shoot, and he left the league and he could shoot. And he understood how to work with bigs in all different kinds of ways. And I think he is the true essence of a leader. Ended up being a coach in the league as well. So my favorite baseball player of all time was Thurman Munson. That name might not ring a bell to any of you. Yeah. And I remember where I was when I heard on the radio that he died. So that's I was a catcher when I was little and loved the game of baseball. And boy, he was a special athlete. So I think those are two guys that stand out in my mind that might be a little surprising.
Absent Harris Blitzer facilities, and I'll let you bail out of that one. Greatest sports venue you ever been in?
Madison Square Garden, bar none. It's the world's most famous arena for a reason. It is you walk in that place, and I'm a total sports junkie. So I remember my first day there. I was like, hey, so how does it work? Can we play on the court? And they're like, no, we don't do that. I said, we do now. So the next day I was on the court playing, and I skated too. I have no skating skills whatsoever, but to be able to get on the ice with Adam Graves and Ron Duguay and skate with real legends of hockey was really quite a thrill. But that venue is concerts, anything there is mind-boggling.
A lot of foodies in the group. Favorite restaurant?
Oh man, Vetri. It's in Philadelphia. It's Mark Vetri's the chef. Kind of an interesting story, a big Sixers fan. And he studied in Italy and came back to the U.S. and couldn't find pasta and bread that tasted the same. So we bought a farm in Iowa and grew a special kind of wheat that makes the bread and pasta. So I'm half Italian, so Esposito. O'Neill Esposito is my mother's maiden name. So I'm a sucker for a good Italian meal. Favorite vacation spot? I have so many. Cabo in Mexico, I think that's my happy place. LBI, Beach Haven, Long Beach Island. I don't know if you've ever been there, but to me, I step across that bridge and my whole blood pressure drops. And probably Newport Beach, California. Those are my three places that you could just drop me there and I'm happy. For me, greatest sports moment or victory I saw, 1980 U.S. hockey team. Do you have a great moment? Or that was a great moment. I'll tell you my best live moment is not going to mean anything to you, but the first game Carmelo Anthony played for the Knicks, which I know didn't end as well as Knicks fans would have liked. But that first game, the Garden has this kind of buzz for big events where you can't really describe it, but there's you kind of just hear noise. It's ambient noise. And I think we were bringing back the 69 team. I can't remember, one of the great teams of all time. And so we had him roll through the center just because we had the great team, the championship team roll through. And he got announced, and they played Coming Home, that song, Coming Home, that song. And the place lost its mind. That's definitely one. And then my first game at the Sixers was pretty wild. We were playing LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh, their first game of the season. And our first game of Brett Brown and Sam Hinkie, and it was my first game. And we beat them. And we weren't supposed to beat anybody. And Michael Carter-Williams, who ended up being Rookie of the Year, went for a triple-double, had 30-some-odd points. And we beat them in the first game of the season. So those are they're more personal, But yeah, spectacular times.
Great stories. I love it. Before I go into the final question, anybody else from the audience? I'm sorry, Anthony?
I just have a question. You mentioned having that grit and instilling that in your kids and that drive to get that ball. How do you I have kids, much less than you have kids. How do you instill that in your kids? You
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of both. I will tell you, I'll tell you a story, and then I'll give you an anecdote. I was in, my oldest daughter was not really one for school. And so I learned really early on, there was a lot of pressure being my daughter, you know, so, and her freshman year she came, didn't have great grades, and I was like, look, I don't give a crap about your grades. I just care if you work hard. Like, I honestly don't care. Like, if you don't want me to look at your grades, I won't look at them. And so I didn't look at her grades until I accidentally opened them up her senior year. And she has this like incredible world view. And so she spent a summer in Zambia on a dirt floor in a tent, okay, working in an orphanage. I'm like, that's my little Barbie doll. I like that, you know. And then the next summer she worked in Athens at a Syrian refugee camp, which is a really hardcore place. And I was there 6 months later with her at a wedding. And she's like, Dad, I want to take you to where I lived. I was like, oh, that'd be great. We're walking down the street, and I was like, holy crap. I'm like, there goes my Father of the Year award. There are bars in the window. I'm like, this is a really tough area of Athens. And I was like, Lex, you lived here? She's like, yeah, the hostel right there. And I was like, she's like, Dad, you think this is bad? You should check out the subway I took. And I was like, you boy, that's not great. And she's like, and that was not nearly as bad as the camp. Now, the camp was dangerous. And I was like, holy crap. So I had this, I'm the worst dad in the world moment, but I also had this moment like of just pride. Like, okay, I got a tough kid on my hands, you know? And the question was she born tough? I don't know. I will tell you, like, when it comes to sports, I think we coddle these kids so much. I think we coddle them in life. And I don't coddle my kids, like even the other parents' kids. I mean, you would like me, if you have a daughter, you'd like me coaching her. You wouldn't love it, but you'd like it. Like, she goes down, and they're like, oh, let me come out of the game. Like, I stand right over them. I was like, Coach, you need a timeout? I'm like, nope. You want to take her out of the game? I'm like, nope. You're fine. So I do some of that, you know. I have drills where I roll the ball on the ground. You got to go dive for it, like my dad used to do to me. I have offensive charge drills. Where you go, like, someone just runs straight into you, take an offensive charge. And those take some time to really, like, embrace. And I don't think it's for everybody. But I got to tell you, like life's hard. Like, you think diving on the ground is hard? Like, you try living life. I don't know. I just think, like, we can coddle these kids all we want. Yeah, amen, right? Thank you. And look, and I know there's a time to be compassionate and loving, and it's just, that's not the time on the court. That's not what that's for. That's the time where we can instill some values that I think, like, made this country great, keep this country great. And some of that's just grit and hard work, and not being afraid to sweat or get dirty. And I know with girls it's different, you know, because you know, girls haven't had the advantage of team sports. In the last 20 years, they have. And I think it's going to change the world. I really do. And so to the extent we can just get them to just lean in and get a little dirty, I think life gets better.
I'm sorry, was there one more question? I don't see.
Okay, this is like the worst answer, okay? Yeah, it is. My answer is going to be bad. So I've been in this business a long time, and so I root for my friends. And so I'm like the worst. Like, when fans, you know, can you imagine? I grew up a New York Giants fan. Okay, I went to go work for the Eagles. People are like, "Are you rooting for the Eagles? You rooting for the Birds?" I'm like, "Yeah, Giants are out. This is my paycheck." You know? And it's like, I grew up a Rangers fan. I worked for the Devils. I took all my Rangers stuff, true story, put it in a pile, called 3 of my friends who were big Rangers fans, and I was like, it's outside my house on the sidewalk. Come take whatever you want. Whatever else is going in the garbage. And so, like, I'm for sale. And I'm not proud of that. I'm not proud. So I grew up a Yankees fan. One of my best friends runs the Red Sox, for example. And, like, the notion that I would root for the Red Sox when I was a kid is like, it's a 0% chance. And I actually root for the Red Sox a little bit. So I root for the Yankees. I have friends at the Mets. I root for where my friends are. It's a terrible answer, I know.
So do you think we should hit Altuve tonight?
Oh, man.
All right.
I will say, you know, the traditions of sport, okay? A nice little chin music inside is not the worst thing for baseball. No, it's not.
Thanks. One more before I give the final question. Henry, one more? Go ahead.
I got one more from Scott. So, what was your rock bottom? Where did you realize that you had to wake up and change something in your life to be where you are today?
Yeah, I had several rock bottoms. I think the time when I was running this company called Hoops TV, and it went under, and I had 53 employees, one of whom was my brother, and my wife had just left work to raise our daughter, who was, I think, 6 months old or so, and I was mentally shot. I couldn't work, I couldn't think. And my wife was like hiding the bills and hiding the foreclosure notices and all that stuff until I could get myself kind of recentered and situated. But I think that's the time when I was like rock bottom, where I was like, I had to pull myself together. And I started playing, for me, like everybody has an escape in the world. Like for me, basketball's an escape. Like I hear the ball, my head gets better. And it's probably not basketball for you, but it might be watching a baseball game or watching the Yankees, or it might be like going for a walk, or it might be reading a book. Whatever it is for you, like that escape, that's what basketball is for me, just the sounds and sights. So I was doing that. I was walking with my daughter, who was really little at the time, in a stroller, and I was reading a lot. I just slowly was like coming back into real life. But then I signed up for Ameridebt. Don't ever do that, by the way. Hopefully none of you have ever done it, but there's these debt consolidation services. They make life really hard for you. But I did for that. They burned me for about 7 years. But I had that was tough. Like it was emotionally tough. Financially, it was brutal. And eventually, I dug out and recovered and got a job and went back to life. But I've seen it. I've seen way too much. Having miscarriages. My wife had several miscarriages. That was probably like in terms of like personal despair or bottom. That was probably it. And then work. Getting fired publicly and jobs like I have, like when I get fired, it's in the media. And so like your mom's like, hey, it's not working out for you, huh? Are you really this bad of a guy? I'm like, no, I'm awesome, Mom. So I've had some of those moments, and I don't know, as I get older, like I care less about the surfacey stuff and care more about, the connection stuff.
Okay, I just want to wrap it up with a final question, and I want to circle back to what brought us here, the book. Right? We talk about the book. You hop on an elevator with two of our members. You got 1 minute to sell the most powerful message from that book. What is it?
I've got 1 minute. I'm going to tell you that you have this opportunity once in your life to live, and to live a life of purpose. And you have to figure out what that looks like and what it is. And we spend way too much time pointing at others. And I always say you got one finger pointed out, you got these three pointing right back at you. He's not letting me do this. I can't do this because of X. I'm in a disadvantage because of Y. And I'd say it's up to you. It's up to that person in the mirror to decide every day how you want to live your life. And I hope you lead it full of love. And I hope you lead it open to learn. And I hope you lead it in a way where you serve others.
Brothers and sisters, Scott O'Neill, thank you for your time, Scott. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, thank you very much.